Hello, I'm SA, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin. Beyond finding the number of ways to make change for $1, what underlying mathematical structures govern all such problems of decomposition? This question, which appears at first to be a simple puzzle of currency, opens a door into one of the most elegant and profound areas of pure mathematics, the theory of integer partitions. It asks us to consider the very essence of how a whole can be constructed from its parts. An integer, say 5, can be expressed as a sum of positive integers in several ways: as 5 itself, as 4 plus 1, as 3 plus 2, as 3 plus 1 plus 1, as 2 plus 2 plus 1, as 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, and finally, as a sum of 5 ones. These 7 distinct decompositions are the partitions of the number 5. The central task, then, becomes one of enumeration. For any given integer, how many such partitions exist? This is the problem that captivated a generation of mathematicians, yet it was a British artillery officer turned mathematical grandmaster, Percy Alexander MacMahon, who would provide the architectural blueprint for the entire field. His work would transform the study of partitions from a cabinet of curiosities into a systematic algebraic discipline. The landscape of partition theory before MacMahon's arrival was dominated by the monumental figure of Leonhard Euler. It was Euler in the mid-18th century who first discovered the breathtaking power of generating functions as a tool for these counting problems. He conceived of an infinite product, specifically the product over all positive integers, k of the term 1 over the quantity 1 minus x to the power of k. When this expression is expanded as a power series in x, the coefficient of the term x to the power of n is precisely p of n, the number of partitions of the integer n. This was a discovery of the highest order, a compact and almost magical formula that encodes an infinite amount of combinatorial information. Euler wielded this new weapon with characteristic genius, deriving from it one of the most striking results in all of number theory, the pentagonal number theorem. This theorem provides a stunningly efficient recurrence relation for calculating the partition function, connecting it to a sparse sequence of integers known as the pentagonal numbers. The world of partitions through Euler's eyes was a realm of miraculous identities and intricate numerical patterns, each discovered through brilliant, bespoke arguments. His work provided the foundational questions and the primary tool, the generating function, leaving behind a collection of profound and beautiful theorems that stood like isolated, magnificent monuments. What the field possessed in beauty, it lacked in systemic coherence. The proofs of these identities were often marvels of formal manipulation, yet they offered little insight into a possible underlying algebraic structure that might connect them all. A unifying theory, a grammar for the language of partitions, was absent. This is the intellectual environment into which MacMahon stepped. Coming to professional mathematics through a highly unconventional route after a distinguished military career, he brought a unique perspective, one perhaps less bound by the traditional approaches of academic analysis. He perceived that the generating functions of other were more than clever counting devices. He recognized them as expressions living within a much larger, more structured world, the algebra of symmetric functions. Symmetric functions are polynomials in several variables that remain unchanged under any permutation of those variables. For instance, in 3 variables x sub 1, x sub 2, and x sub 3, the polynomial x sub 1 plus x sub 2 plus x sub 3 is symmetric, as is the product x sub 1 times x sub 2 times x sub 3. These functions form a rich algebraic system with several important families or bases that can be used to express any other symmetric function. Two of the most fundamental are the elementary symmetric functions, which are sums of all products of distinct variables taken a certain number at a time, and the complete homogeneous symmetric functions, which are sums of all monomials of a given degree. MacMahon's revolutionary insight was to establish a direct and profound correspondence between the world of integer partitions and the world of symmetric functions. He demonstrated that the generating function for the complete homogeneous symmetric functions was precisely Euler's generating function for the partition numbers. Similarly, the generating function for the elementary symmetric functions was its reciprocal. With this single powerful connection, the entire algebraic machinery of symmetric functions became available to the study of partitions. Euler's isolated identities could now be reinterpreted and proven as consequences of general algebraic relations between different bases of symmetric functions. For example, the well-known identities of Newton, which relate the power sum symmetric functions to the elementary symmetric functions, could be given a purely combinatorial interpretation in terms of partitions. The field was suddenly endowed with a powerful systematic language. The process of discovery was transformed from an art of specialized manipulation into a science of algebraic deduction. This synthesis did something remarkable. It provided a unified framework where questions about partitions could be translated into questions about symmetric functions, solved using the powerful tools of algebra, and then translated back to yield deep combinatorial truths. MacMahon began to fill notebooks with new identities, all derived from this systematic approach. He developed a dictionary, a Rosetta Stone, that connected the combinatorial properties of partitions, such as the size of their largest part or the number of their parts, to specific algebraic features of symmetric function expansions. His magnum opus, the two-volume work titled Combinatory Analysis, stands as a testament to this architectural vision. It is a comprehensive treatise that lays out this new science of enumeration, deriving classical results with elegant ease and pushing forward to discover countless new ones. The book is a cathedral built upon the foundation of the symmetric function. The enduring legacy of this initial foundational work is immense. By embedding partition theory within a larger algebraic context, MacMahon gave it a structure and a methodology that it retains to this day. Any graduate student beginning a study of enumerative combinatorics learns this correspondence as a foundational principle. The problems he studied have found deep and unexpected resonance in other domains. In statistical mechanics, the partitions of an integer are used to model the discrete energy levels of a system of particles, with the generating functions playing a role in calculating the partition function of a physical system, a quantity that encodes its thermodynamic properties. In computer science, algorithms for integer factorization and other number-theoretic problems rely on a sophisticated understanding of partition identities. MacMahon's work provided the essential framework that made these modern applications conceivable. He took a collection of beautiful gems and revealed the crystal lattice that bound them together, preparing the ground for explorations into even higher and more complex dimensions of combinatorial structure. The logical successor to a line of numbers was a plane of them. Having established a systematic algebraic language for one-dimensional partitions, Percy MacMahon directed his formidable intellect toward a problem of vastly greater complexity, the enumeration of plane partitions. Visually, the concept is intuitive and elegant. Imagine a corner of a room and begin stacking identical cubes into it, such that no cube is placed without another cube directly beneath it or against one of the two walls. The resulting structure, when viewed from above, presents a two-dimensional array of integers, where each integer represents the height of the stack of cubes at that position. The rule for stacking implies a constraint on the numbers in this array. They must be weakly decreasing as one moves away from the corner, both along the rows and down the columns. This was the new object of study, a generalization of a partition into a second dimension. The intellectual leap required to tackle this problem was immense. The combinatorial intricacy explodes when moving from a simple sequence of numbers to a grid. The methods that worked so beautifully for integer partitions while foundational proved insufficient for this higher dimensional analog. The constraints on the grid elements are interdependent in a far more complicated way. Counting them directly case by case becomes a fool's errand almost immediately. The challenge confronting the mathematical community of the late 19th and early 20th centuries was to find a universal law, a compact and elegant formula that could count the number of such allowed configurations within a box of a given length, width, and height. This was a problem that sat at the frontier of enumerative theory, a peak that had resisted all previous attempts at ascent. It demanded a new synthesis of algebraic machinery. MacMahon's assault on this problem was a masterclass in strategic thinking. He recognized that the answer would lie within the theory of symmetric functions, a domain he commanded with unparalleled authority. His approach involved constructing a grand generating function, a far more elaborate polynomial than its one-dimensional counterpart, whose coefficients would encode the desired numbers. The technical heart of his method, however, involved a brilliant application of matrix determinants. He established a correspondence between the plane partitions and certain families of non-intersecting paths on a lattice, a geometric reframing of the problem. The number of such families of paths could then, through the Gessel-Vianot lemma, be calculated as the determinant of a matrix whose entries were themselves counts of simpler, single paths. This was a profound insight, connecting the discrete geometry of stacked cubes to the continuous and algebraic world of linear algebra. After years of intense calculation and theoretical development, he produced the solution in 1912. It remains one of the most beautiful and astonishing results in the history of combinatorics. The MacMahon formula for the number of plane partitions that fit inside a box of dimensions A by B by C is a single, compact expression. It is a product of fractions. For each integer I from 1 to A, each integer j from 1 to B, and each integer k from 1 to C, one constructs the term, the quantity I plus j plus k minus 1, all divided by the quantity I plus j plus k minus 2. The final count is the product of all these simple rational terms. The sheer elegance of this formula is breathtaking. From the dizzying complexity of stacking cubes under strict rules, a pattern of profound simplicity emerges. It suggests that underlying the combinatorial chaos is a hidden, pristine algebraic or geometric structure. MacMahon's formula was the first tangible evidence of that structure. The publication of this result was a landmark achievement, resolving a major open problem and solidifying MacMahon's status as the world's leading figure in enumeration. For decades, its primary significance was seen as the solution itself, a triumphant capstone to the classical theory of partitions. Yet, the story of the formula's importance was only beginning. As mathematics evolved through the 20th century, MacMahon's work on plane partitions began to appear in the most unexpected of places, revealing its deep connections to other, seemingly distant, branches of science and mathematics. In theoretical physics, for instance, the study of Dimer models on a lattice, which involves tiling a grid with domino-like shapes, is crucial for understanding phenomena like crystal surface absorption and the behavior of certain magnetic materials. It transpires that in specific cases, the number of ways to tile a hexagonal lattice with rhombi is given precisely by MacMahon's formula. The stacks of cubes in his abstract world provide a direct count for the physical configurations of molecules on a surface. His purely mathematical exploration had, unbeknownst to him, described a fundamental quantity in statistical mechanics. Even more profound connections emerged from the world of abstract algebra. In the sophisticated field of representation theory, which studies how algebraic structures can be represented as groups of linear transformations, plane partitions play a fundamental role. The dimension of certain representations of Lie algebras, which are central objects in both pure mathematics and quantum physics, can be computed by counting specific classes of plane partitions. MacMahon's formula, therefore, provides a key to understanding the size and structure of these essential algebraic objects. His combinatorial counting had captured a deep truth about the nature of continuous symmetries. Perhaps the most dramatic vindication of the formula's depth came at the end of the 20th century with the resolution of the alternating sign matrix conjecture. An alternating sign matrix is a square grid filled with zeros, positive ones and negative ones, such that the entries in each row and column sum to 1, and the non-zero entries in any given row or column alternate in sign. For years, mathematicians had sought a formula to count how many such matrices exist for a given size n. The problem was notoriously difficult. When a solution was finally found and rigorously proven, the resulting formula was shockingly familiar. The number of n by n alternating sign matrices was identical to the number of a particular class of symmetric plane partitions, a number whose formula had been derived from MacMahon's general result decades earlier. This discovery sent a shockwave through the combinatorial world. It demonstrated that MacMahon's work was far more than a brilliant calculation. It was a prophecy. It contained within its elegant structure the seeds of entirely new mathematical theories, hinting at a vast unifying web of connections that continues to be explored today. His enumeration of stacked cubes had become a cornerstone in the architecture of modern mathematics. The astonishing correspondence between alternating sign matrices and symmetric plane partitions revealed a hidden unity within mathematics, a deep resonance echoing from MacMahon's foundational work on enumeration. This discovery illuminates how his abstract calculations possessed an almost prophetic quality, mapping territories of mathematical thought decades before they were formally explored. Yet, the same intellect that soared into these high-dimensional abstract realms remained profoundly connected to the tangible world of shape, color, and form. To fully grasp the unique character of his contributions, one must look toward the remarkable circumstances of his career, a path forged far from the cloisters of Cambridge or Göttingen. His journey began within the rigid, practical discipline of the British military, a context that would shape his entire intellectual orientation. Percy MacMahon was a soldier. Born in Malta to a military family, his education at the Royal Military Academy at Woolwich prepared him for a career in the Royal Artillery. For nearly 2 decades, his life was one of service to the Crown, with postings that took him across the British Empire, most notably to India. This was a world of ballistics, logistics, and engineering, a world where problems were concrete and solutions were valued for their efficacy. During these years, he pursued mathematics as a private, intense passion. His early papers on invariants and partitions were written from a position of intellectual isolation, the products of a mind working without the constant dialogue and collaboration of a university environment. The achievement of his election as a Fellow of the Royal Society in 1890 is all the more extraordinary for this fact. He was a captain in the Royal Artillery, a professional soldier recognized as an equal by the leading scientific minds of his nation. When he eventually retired from the army to accept a professorship, he brought with him a perspective forged by this unique background, a deep-seated belief that mathematics, even at its most abstract, should possess a certain constructive, problem-solving character. This philosophy finds its most charming and accessible expression in his work on what he termed mathematical pastimes. Collected in a 2-volume work published in his later years, these explorations stand as a testament to his desire to render the elegant structures of combinatorics visible and tactile. He saw in puzzles and games a powerful medium for communicating profound mathematical ideas. For MacMahon, a well-designed puzzle was a laboratory for the mind, a physical system whose constraints and possibilities mirrored the formal axioms of a mathematical theory. His creations were invitations to explore complex principles through the simple, intuitive act of play. The most famous of these are his sets of colored tiles and cubes. Consider first his set of 24 colored squares. The premise is beguilingly simple. One is given a collection of square tiles. The edges of each tile are colored, drawing from a palette of 3 distinct colors. The complete set comprises every possible unique coloring of a square under this scheme, accounting for rotations. 2 squares are considered identical if one can be rotated to look like the other. A careful enumeration reveals there are precisely 24 such distinct squares. The puzzle, then, is to arrange these 24 squares into a 4x6 rectangle. The rules are twofold. First, any 2 edges that touch must be the same color. Second, the entire outer border of the completed rectangle must be of a single uniform color. What begins as a recreational challenge swiftly reveals itself as a formidable problem in combinatorial design. The search for a solution is an exploration of a vast configuration space. Each placement of a tile constrains the possibilities for its neighbors, creating a cascade of logical dependencies. The very creation of the 24 tiles is an exercise in the application of group theory. The enumeration relies on understanding the symmetries of the square and using tools like Burnside's lemma to count the distinct orbits of colorings. The puzzle itself becomes a physical manifestation of a search algorithm, a hands-on encounter with the difficulties of constraint satisfaction problems that lie at the heart of modern computer science and artificial intelligence. The player is, in effect, performing a depth-first search through a complex decision tree, guided by intuition and spatial reasoning. MacMahon elevated this concept into the 3rd dimension with his set of 30 colored cubes. Here, the 6 faces of a cube are colored from a palette of 6 colors, with the complete set again representing all 30 rotationally distinct possibilities. The challenge is to assemble these 30 cubes into a 2x3x5 rectangular prism. As with the squares, the rule is that adjacent faces must match in color, and the entire exterior of the final prism must be monochromatic. The increase in dimensionality causes a combinatorial explosion. The number of possible arrangements is astronomical, and the geometric and logical constraints are far more intricate. Solving MacMahon's cubes is an achievement of profound spatial and logical insight. It is an engagement with the symmetries of the cube, a much richer and more complex group than that of the square, and a visceral lesson in the scaling of combinatorial difficulty. These pastimes were pedagogical masterpieces. They provided a tangible reality for abstract concepts. An idea like an equivalence class, which can seem arcane on a blackboard, becomes intuitive when one physically sorts the colored squares, grouping together those that are merely rotations of one another. The concept of a complete enumeration becomes clear when one verifies that the 24 squares or 30 cubes truly represent all possibilities. They demonstrate that mathematics is a creative and exploratory activity. The aesthetic pleasure of finding a valid tiling, the satisfying click of the final cube slotting into place, is the emotional reward for a successful journey through a logical labyrinth. This approach, linking abstract reasoning to physical manipulation and aesthetic satisfaction, anticipates many of the core principles of modern mathematics education. The legacy of these creations extends into the domain of combinatorial game theory and the study of tiling problems, fields that investigate the structural properties of games and the possibilities of covering spaces with geometric shapes. MacMahon's work showed that recreational objects could serve as powerful models for serious mathematical inquiry. His puzzles are ancestors to the popular logic puzzles and computational toys that continue to fascinate and educate. They embody his conviction that the deepest mathematical structures could be found in the most unexpected places, from the partitions of an integer to the coloring of a child's block. This unique ability to perceive the abstract in the concrete and to make the abstract tangible was a hallmark of his genius. It reveals a mind constantly seeking the underlying patterns and unifying principles that govern the world of structure, whether that structure is expressed in a power series or a wooden cube. This lifelong quest for a grand unifying framework would ultimately culminate in his most powerful and general result, a theorem that provides a master key to the entire kingdom of enumeration. That very kingdom of enumeration, for all its charm and ingenuity, often resembled a collection of exquisitely crafted individual keys, each designed for a single specific lock. To count the ways of arranging one set of objects required one method. To enumerate the configurations of another demanded a completely different bespoke approach. The discipline awaited a unifying principle, a single powerful instrument capable of unlocking a vast array of these combinatorial vaults. This instrument arrived in the form of the MacMahon master theorem, a result of such breathtaking generality that it stands as the crowning achievement of his intellectual life. It represents the ultimate expression of his quest to systematize the art of counting. The problem the theorem addresses is fundamental to the entire field. Many, if a great many, questions in combinatorics can be rephrased as a request for a specific coefficient in the expansion of a complicated multivariate power series. Imagine a function of several variables, say x sub 1, x sub 2, up to x sub n, expressed as an infinite sum of terms, each with its own coefficient. The challenge is to extract the coefficient of a particular term. For instance, the term where x sub 1 is raised to the power co sub 1, x sub 2 is raised to the power co sub 2, and so on, without performing the Herculean and often impossible task of expanding the entire series. Before MacMahon, this was the domain of ad hoc trickery and painstaking, case-by-case analysis. His solution, the master theorem, is a monument of mathematical elegance. It establishes a profound and unexpected duality. It connects the world of discrete enumeration, represented by the coefficients of a power series, with the world of linear algebra, embodied by matrices and their determinants. The theorem states, in essence, that the coefficient of a specific term in the expansion of a certain multivariate function can be found directly. It is equivalent to the corresponding coefficient in the expansion of the reciprocal of a determinant. This determinant is constructed in a simple way from the very linear equations that define the combinatorial problem. Specifically, it is the determinant of the expression I minus A, where I is the identity matrix, and the matrix A contains the coefficients that define the system. This insight is transformative. It provides a mechanical, almost magical procedure for solving problems that were previously intractable. One takes a combinatorial problem, translates it into a system of linear relationships captured by the matrix A, computes a determinant, and then finds the desired coefficient from the resulting expression. The theorem acts as a universal bridge. On one side lies the messy, infinite complexity of a power series expansion. On the other, the clean, finite, and well-understood structure of a matrix. MacMahon built the bridge and gave everyone the toll-free passage. Its applications are legion. It subsumes a vast number of known combinatorial identities and provides a factory for producing new ones. Problems concerning permutations with restricted positions, the enumeration of lattice paths, and even certain aspects of his own work on partitions can be seen as special cases of this single, overarching result. With the master theorem, MacMahon provided the field with its algebraic backbone. This elevation of combinatorics to a systematic algebraic science is his ultimate legacy. He was a quintessential combinatorial artist, a mathematician who saw in the simple act of counting a pathway to discovering profound and beautiful structures. His life's work demonstrates a consistent philosophy that enumeration is an exploration of hidden symmetries and algebraic relationships. The integer partitions, the plane partitions, the magic squares, and the recreational puzzles were all, for him, different manifestations of an underlying mathematical order. They were windows into a world where patterns possessed a grammar and a syntax, a language he sought to codify. His 2-volume magnum opus Combinatory Analysis was the first comprehensive treatise to present the field as a coherent and unified discipline, grounded in the powerful methods of generating functions and algebraic manipulation. He established a new paradigm. The focus of combinatorics expanded from the mere calculation of numbers to the study of the structural properties of the objects being counted. This perspective is what makes his work so enduringly modern. The abstract patterns he pioneered, the study of symmetric functions, representation theory, and algebraic structures arising from combinatorial problems are precisely the tools that have become indispensable in other, seemingly distant, scientific domains. In theoretical physics, the counting of states in statistical mechanics, the calculation of Feynman diagrams in quantum field theory, and the exploration of dualities in string theory all rely on the sophisticated combinatorial machinery that MacMahon helped to build. The physicist's partition function is a direct descendant of the generating functions he so masterfully employed. Likewise, in theoretical computer science, the analysis of algorithms frequently reduces to a combinatorial question. Determining the average case or worst-case performance of a sorting algorithm, for example, requires counting the number of permutations with certain properties. The generating functions and asymptotic methods that MacMahon developed are now standard tools in the computer scientist's toolkit. His work provides the mathematical foundation for understanding the complexity and efficiency of computational processes. Percy MacMahon, the soldier mathematician, therefore, stands as one of the primary architects of modern combinatorics. He found a field rich with clever puzzles and isolated results, and left it as a deep and systematic branch of mathematics, replete with powerful theories and broad connections to the rest of the intellectual landscape. His genius was his ability to perceive the universal in the particular, to see the grand algebraic design in a simple colored cube, and to construct from these observations a cathedral of abstract thought. He taught us that to count is to discover structure, and in that structure lies a beauty as deep and as resonant as any in the mathematical world.
We really appreciate you tuning in to this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.